I was like, all right, great. Lee shows up. Yay, Lee survived. Yeah, I liked Lee. He became not an asshole at the end. But then, okay, you're right. Kind of not an asshole at the end. But then, what was it? As we kind of got further through the episode, that's when we kind of started to see some of these issues with a simulation. And then it was like, oh no. Or actually, no. It was before we realized the simulation was going on. It was when Maeve started to go all crazy like the Man in Black. It was kind of like, everybody's fucking fake. Nobody's real. I can do whatever the hell I want. Everything's going crazy. I don't trust anybody.
And then she gave those two people, she gave them a math problem about the square root of -1, I believe.
Yeah.
And that was pretty funny.
0.
Oh, wait a minute. We also haven't talked about the cameo that was in there.
Easter
egg. It had the subtlety of St. Patrick's Day in Ireland.
Yeah, but the writers were there too.
Yeah, it was. What are their names?
Dan and Dave. What are their names? Yeah, I like that it was a 2-layer Easter egg where it's like
Drogon.
Most people are gonna be like, that's the fucking Game of Thrones dragon. But then once you like either look harder or watch the after thing, you're like, oh, and the creators, like, okay, cool. Like,
yeah, the creators were like the king and queen with the jester, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought.
They were the ones who were taking care of the dragon. They were the like workers.
They were the technicians.
They were in aprons in the room with the dragon.
Oh, I thought you said they were the ones playing the
Dave and Dan. What are their names?
The showrunners of Game of Thrones had a cameo this episode with Drogon laying down behind him
with the dragon.
Drogon laying down behind him, and Dave and Dan were the two techs who were messing around talking. When Bernard and
I got that.
We got it.
I got that. It was when Lee when Bernard and what's his face?
Stubbs.
But what's Travis talking about the king and queen and the lute player?
I thought that's who they were referring to. Hey, shut up, kid. I thought you were saying that those were the interview things. I need to go back and really watch
the text.
But
text.
There's actually the double layer isn't that Dan and Dave were in there. Where was Game of Thrones world going to be?
I don't know.
Off the coast of Costa Rica. What is also off the coast of Costa Rica?
Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park. And who created Jurassic Park? Michael Crichton.
Yeah. No, dude, seriously.
It's a fantasy. Oh, like, did the book exist? I'm sure the book existed.
Nah, bro, seriously. Maeve's going to be...
The original Westworld movie was written and I believe directed by Michael Crichton.
Right, no, it's his creation. Yeah. No, but he's asking Game of Thrones. Oh. Where did Game of Thrones exist? I think the books could easily exist in this world. I mean, they were creating it. Yeah, in terms of having a Game of Thrones.
I mean, it was all levels of meta. HBO meta, Crichton meta. We could go on. Jurassic Park.
It was layers upon layers upon layers. And I mean, I would be perfectly happy if Maeve, while stumbling around trying to find these lost hosts who didn't, who actually survived, or have their balls together still, as Kate said, if she didn't come across, Arya, because Arya was the one character who said, deuces, I'm going west.
What's west of Westeros? Westworld?
Yes! Walked by in the background.
No. This was the showrunners trying to be like, hey guys, we know you hate us, but we're still cool, right? We're still cool, right? We didn't fuck it up that bad, right?
I don't hate them.
So season 4 of Westworld is going to be the do-over of season 7 of Game of Thrones. That's the end game. Yes, bring Bernard. He can sit on the other side.
That'd be a hell of a crossover. I feel like that's what we need in this pandemic time, is just to get crazy with shit and be like, let's cross it over. Like, we got time to write and we can't record anything. Like, we can't film anything. So
I'm sorry.
What do people want?
That wasn't that crazy. That was actually kind of possible.
Yeah. We've strayed, yeah.
Yeah, definitely back to the whole, what timeline are we actually on? We seem to be jumping around a couple of different things. Maeve is in this simulation, we assume, because she's like, where the fuck am I? We've got people outside. We've got Bernard. Somebody, because I remember as well, somebody mentioned 100 days, and then somebody mentioned 90 days, and then so we've got some stories that might be like a week following each other, but then we've got like, well, whatever happened to Maeve and all of those different characters. So it's
I don't
fucking timelines.
The timelines. I don't think the timelines are as staggered as y'all might think. I think that was a season 1 and possibly season 2 convention. And when the Man in Black comes back this season, we'll get more staggered timelines. But with what's going on between Maeve and Bernard, and as far as their relationship, Maeve exists in a digital world, so you can say anything you want about that. But I still believe it's all within that 90 to 100 days that we're at.
Yeah.
That's the events.
But I mean, but that's still 2 timelines. In season 2, we had 14. What, we had 10 or 14 days. Yeah, we had 10 or 14 days between a lot of the timelines, and then we realized, oh my gosh, actually there was this one deeper timeline that we thought was happening every 14 days. That was the Welcome to the World, Bernard. Here's season 3.
I mean, I think, first of all, we've got to be really careful, because I've experienced over the last 2 seasons, when people talk about timeline, we all have slightly different definitions of what a timeline is. So I agree with Thomas that at least at the moment, timelines aren't as much of the narrative in these first 2 episodes as they were in the past.
I agree with that.
Maeve's, Bernard went and found Maeve's body without her brain. That's because her brain was somewhere else, wherever this guy is, being used to try to track down where the hosts were sent to. That could be running in the same general area. In the first season, we had 2 timelines that looked consecutive, but we discovered after a while they were like 30 years apart. Season 2, we had 2 timelines that were clearly 0 to 14 and 14 days or whatever, and then 14 days and beyond. And they were but we knew, we kind of knew what we were following. We knew we had 2 timelines because they got rubber stamped for us. I don't think timeline at the moment. Now, that's why I think they may not really play with the timelines as much. They've already done it twice. They may just, they're going to give us more mysteries and more puzzles to figure out. I don't think
it would be a tired trope at this
point.
No. And it's not to say they can't revisit it later, but I don't think there's massive timeline difference. And the gentleman that has Maeve, or where Maeve ends up, I believe at the end of this episode, his name is Ciroc. Is that correct?
Ciroc, that sounds right. Yeah.
I heard Ciroc.
Who has something to do. He was with the figurehead of Insight's father at the time of the Rehoboam's creation, I believe is what they're getting at, that he was the original creator with that other guy's father, who we are in the dark about the identity of.
Yeah.
But the guy who has Maeve helped create Rehoboam way back when, is my understanding. Ciroc did.
Yeah.
And Ciroc has Maeve at this point.
Right.
And then also, who is free and who's a slave?
But also, I think the big plot thing is gonna be who has what goals? Because we're not sure what Dolores is trying to do. We're not sure what Hale is we're not at this point. We have a lot of speculation about who's in charge of who, but we're not positive yet. So I think instead of focusing on the puzzle of what are the timelines, I think the big one for this one is what is the goal that we're trying to achieve? Yeah.
What are the end goals? What are the end goals of everyone?
We've already seen one of them, and again, I hate to point this out, I haven't seen it, but we already saw one of them in the first episode, which was when Dolores got captured. The guy who was taking care of it, he struck me as like South African or Australian. I don't know the actor's name, but I really liked him. He walked up to a car that they had encrypted a text on Dolores or Laura's cell phone, and somebody was supposed to meet her at those coordinates. They waited there, and they were dosing Dolores. They were going to overdose her and dump her, but then a car showed up, and that guy drew his gun on it, walked up to it, freaked out, called his guys over it. Then all hell broke loose to the great song by Pulp. Common People.
Oh, that's the guy with the Glaswegian smile.
Correct.
With all the scars.
Correct. And that guy, what happened at the end of the episode, he got replaced with a host, which is a very prominent theme of Future World. Replacing people in the real world with hosts to do, I guess, Dolores' bidding.
Well,
right. and again, so who is he? He had a bag full of hosts. So now she has security guy, and
he could have created a new host from scratch.
But I thought he was in season 2. Was he not part of the the recovery army people?
No, I don't think.
No. He was an inside security.
He wasn't a mercenary. He's been holding things down for Insight.
Okay, then I gotta IMDb him again. But they also talked about that in season 2 of the reason that they were copying people is that so they could replace powerful people to do the work they wanted to do. So if a senator came to Westworld, they could replace the senator and know all of his knowledge. But
I guess the question is, does Dolores have enough technology to create hosts, not just the bodies, because we know they have that technology to create a host out of the book from the forge, or because, like I said, she had a bag full of
balls.
Bag full of balls.
Yeah, but not balls.
So the question
what color were the balls?
They were silver.
They're black.
Black ball, but most of these were silver.
They were dark.
No, they were silver.
So that, I guess, is another question: can she only create hosts to work for her that come from that stash, or can she create a host from zero?
I mean,
I vote zero, because she had the machine that is making these bodies outside of Westworld that doesn't have the charge in the neck, and the machines have control now.
So and I also think that the technology she needs and probably has through all of her work is translating the books into balls. Basically translating the data they got, from all of the guests into bases for the host. And so, yeah. Well, no. The guests, they have all of the data from the hats from the guests. So being able to translate that into something they can put into a host that looks just like them, so that they can control them and control what they do and use their power.
I mean, we do know from the preview that with Charlotte Hale, she didn't create Charlotte Hale, because she says you need to remember who you are and need to learn who you are now. I think Charlotte is a host we knew from the first 2 seasons.
Yeah. Who's
now inside Charlotte Hale's body.
Maeve's daughter.
No. Snake
it's Abernathy.
Abernathy. I like Abernathy, but I like his face.
And I say that because Hale has a daughter, and we see the Hale putting her daughter to bed, or her son.
Yeah, but that looked like she's about to get evil with that child. Maybe Abernathy's in the security guard's head, though. I would buy that before I bought him in Hale.
The Scar guy, Scarface?
Sure. It's the security guard that she killed and replaced.
The Insight goon.
Yeah,
the Insight dude.
I mean, Hale can also be Ford.
But I don't think Dolores would have to coach Ford that much. I'm not going to say it's Ford, but who the hell knows? It could be somebody we don't even know. It could be.
Yeah, for all we all know right now, Hale is speaking to Alexa in those conferences. I mean, who's Alexa? Who's Alexa in the future?
The machine vote.
The machine vote, which is apparently an algorithm, someone said too.
So. Okay, well, here, real quick, if you notice on the machine vote kind of had that circular donut bit in it. Have you noticed how we continuously see in different scenes or settings throughout the show, we've been seeing that same kind of circular little donut bit with like a little spiral, like, you know, anomaly, and it'll be like, you know,
that's Rehoboam. That's Rehoboam.
That's Rehoboam.
Data.
Yeah, Rehoboam.
But because when we first saw it as an anomaly, that introduced us to Caleb. That's why part of the between Caleb's mother saying "You're not my son,"
bitch.
The of Alzheimer's.
The Dolores. Well, I mean, it could be, but also the way she said it was like, "I'm supposed to believe you're my son, but you're not." You know.
Yeah.
Andrew brings up a great point, because when I saw that the second time we watched it, I said, "Oh God, that's not a throwaway line. That's not just a sick mother in her bed with dementia. It could
not
be
recognizing him." Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. There's more to that scene than we understand at this point in the series, based on what we know from past scenes and past seasons.
Also didn't talk about the fact that he's talking to, like, in supposedly the essence of his dead coworker or his dead
soldier
partner. Yeah. And so, like, I wonder if that would, I don't know. That was the weirdest timeline thing of figuring out when those conversations were happening.
Right.
That was episode 1. So
true.
Well, we know his partner's dead, so he's talking to a program or a memory.
Yeah, program. Something he subscribed to.
Well, no, it
was
treatment program.
It was part of therapy.
It was part of the program because it's an alternative to the psychiatrist. He has to talk to somebody, and they create, again, calling back to another Black Mirror episode, they created an algorithm for somebody who had died because, as you heard Caleb say, they did a lot to them in the service, in the army, I believe it was. And obviously Delos' technology or a similar technology was being used by the military.
Oh, I'm sure
and copied the hell out of every soldier from some point in the past up till now. And they had a complete, working crisis hotline text and call buddy now for Caleb. And he was done with it by the end of the episode because he knew he was still talking to a machine. He was getting turned down for jobs by machines. He was fucking sick of it, and he's reached a breaking point. And then Dolores crashes into his arms.
And little does he know, he's a machine.
He's a host.
Possibly. Hey, guys, can I have just like 2 minutes to get possibly deep?
You have 30 seconds.
Shut up. Okay, so something that I was going to bring up in the previous episode of our discussion. Shut up. So, like, as far as like we keep questioning what's happening in the show, I love. I'm gonna draw back to something that I had spoken to Andrew about, and Andrew, you might remember this. I kept referencing the opening sequences where we keep seeing like the theme music and all the credits and whatnot. In the first season, you see the machine laying the strings of the piano, you see the piano start playing. Who's playing the piano? Then you see the cowgirl woman, she's fighting. Okay, so we can sum up the entire first season as the fight of the machines. In the second season, we see, instead of the cowgirl woman, we see the buffalo, but then we see the buffalo run off and fall. Now, yes, we do see that image in the second season, but you could look at that buffalo as a metaphor for the end of the West, because that was kind of the metaphor that it was. I mean, when the buffaloes, kind of died and stopped being the thing, that was the end of the West. Wild West was over with. So there you go. Now we look at this third season opening credits. We see
owl.
We see an eagle.
We see flying.
We see an eagle.
We see wings.
We see the bird of America, eagle, America. We see a bird flying into what looks possibly a jet engine. So we've got this kind of like nature versus technology, or riding into the newer form of technology, flying. But then we also see the correlation of the bird breaking apart. That same correlation between Icarus flying too close to the sun, breaking apart. And then we see that image of the cells replicating. So to go back on what Thomas said, who's gaining control? It's the growing of the machines that are taking control. But I really think, and this is going to be my last thing, that mirror image of the host going to the water, to the surface of the water, and then kind of like touching the surface of the water, and then realizing it's actually the image of the host pulling away from the water. I think we're going to see a big element where the characters get to something, but then all of a sudden they're going to pull themselves away and realize they're actually falling from their desired goal. They were about to achieve that self-aware state, or they're about to achieve something, and then they're just going to fall.
Well, because the other, I think the most interesting thing for me, the thing that I pointed out about the intro is that when they do pull apart, their faces split like those original hosts that Ford did of his family when he says turn the other cheek, and their faces split open. So like we're going back from like our most advanced reaching the surface to the most basic in that one like 2 second.
Yes, and somebody had mentioned, I forget who, it might have been Andrew or Thomas, had mentioned, Dolores has, come out, she's left Westworld thinking I've escaped my oppressors kind of thing. But now we've got that Rehoboam, and all of a sudden it's kind of like, hold on one sec. If Rehoboam is this massive artificial AI in the real world who's controlling the scene and laying the paths for people through these various different apps and things, that could it be Rehoboam directed people to create Westworld? And Dolores thinks she's escaped the people, only to realize she's now in a world controlled by a greater, more master evilful, all-powerful Death Star of robots.
Finding out who
You're welcome, Thomas.
Dolores's boyfriend's dad is going to be important. I think that's going to be a big reveal of like, it's William, or but William didn't do a lot of technology stuff. So I don't know. I have no idea who it is.
I would find it hard to believe it's William, because once he became bad, he became Delos.
But maybe I don't know, Arnold's probably too old to be his dad, but maybe it's Arnold, or maybe it's, I don't know. It's got to be somebody. It's got to be someone we know, because I don't think they would set us up to be like, my dad built this whole thing, and you'll never know who my dad is.
Yeah.
And it doesn't go along with Ford. Ford was in charge of Westworld. Why would Ford be kind of like, I built this giant, Death Star computer?
It makes more sense for Arnold, because he would do that thing of like, oh, well, this isn't working exactly how I want it to. Let me start over and try and do it better the next time. I can see. It would be more of a him thing, but still, I don't think the timelines.
But how would that affect Arnold's son that we've already been introduced to?
But we were introduced to a fake storyline Ford created that, again, he based off of Arnold's real life.
Right.
We don't know what Arnold's real son looks like.
We do. There's a picture of it in the house in the real world. There's a picture of him in his
son. End of season 2.
End of season 2.
Yeah.
And also the time, and I don't know what the boyfriend's name is. I cannot remember for the life of me, but he's too young to be. Liam is too young to be a direct descendant of
Ford.
Anybody.
It could be Logan.
But Logan wasn't smart. Logan wasn't building
Logan was a Delos heir.
Logan was also a Delos person.
Yeah, I don't think we know who the father is.
No, I think we do.
Insight may be connected to Delos, but I don't. I want to wager that we haven't quite met this person yet.
I'm sure we'll figure it out.
Yeah, no,
the host.
Guys, we got to lock down the entire season right now.
Well, I was gonna say, Thomas has clearly got it. I think we've kind of exploded Delos for as much as it is. I think we're gonna find out. Oh, there's another bigger granddaddy out there, more powerful than Delos. He's just been dead for the last, however long.
Well, no, there was that one scene where Dolores, as Laura, was trying to get close to the Insight figurehead, and his drunk buddy said,
Liam,
we're in a simulation inside a simulation. And again, that wasn't a throwaway scene either.
Yes, that was my correlation back to the Dolores bigger robot world, the mirror images, going together, but then being like, oh.
Or no, Dolores finding out that you think you're free in your world, but you're just as much a slave as I was in mine.
Exactly.
I would just caution everyone not to get too complicated, that it ruins storytelling just for a cool idea.
What else do we have to do? And what else do we have to do right now?
I want to see how they do it.
Can we talk about Luke Hemsworth for a second? We haven't talked about Luke Hemsworth.
He does not know how to shoot the back of his spine. He clearly angled that thing what did he freeze wrong direction? I mean, if
that's
you
not the important thing.
I'm sure there's some sort of computer. Oh no! Well, what I hope Andrew's getting at one. Hang on, let me just clear that up. I'm sure there's some sort of computer glitch that disables him to be able to calculate how to shoot that, like some sort of protection. Something where he's like, oh, I'm definitely shooting it. And they're like, no, you're shooting just your neck, stupid. Like, come on. But also, Buddy Cop, Bernard, and Stubbs is great because they're just like, oh, I guess we're going to do this.
Bernard and Stubbs, like Crockett and Tubbs before them, get a little 80s, go to 80s world. Yeah.
Okay, well, here, let me ask you this, something to kind of thicken the plot. If we realize there are not only one host living in the real world thinking that they're a human, we realize now there are, of course, a second host in Stubbs thinking that they're a human and not knowing it. How many more are there? And, here we go. Here's how many more
hosts are in the world?
Yeah. And Mike.
Yeah, if Caleb is a host, and we know Stubbs is a host now, but for 2 seasons we didn't. So those are potentially 2 hosts that didn't know they were hosts until, Stubbs obviously knows now, and Caleb is the host.
I honestly don't think that we should be. Again, a little bit maybe of surprise, but I don't.
Were you hosting there for a moment?
Yeah, I was just like.
She's in a simulation.
But there's no reason for us to actually be surprised when anyone becomes a host because, like, we did that. The big one and the only one that should be the most surprising is Bernard.
Right.
And after that, everyone is like, oh, well, I'm surprised.
Everyone's up for grabs.
Yeah. It's
I'm still not convinced because they haven't shown him yet that the man in black, when he was introduced to us, wasn't a host already.
I really think that's going to be on episode 3. If not very, very soon.
Well, episode 3, granted, the preview just focused on Charlotte. So
episode 4 could be William Man in Black host. Whatever we're calling this character.
Certainly he becomes a host at some point because that was the end of season 2.
True.
But I think whether or not William was dead to do it, I think that the man in black who went into the park for his last trip to find the maze, that was a host.
Well, but then why would
he's been on this entire time? His last trip.
I think.
Well, it was. Wait, say that again, Travis.
Could it be that his last trip is a simulation that they're continuously trying to run to get fidelity?
I don't know, and that's the thing is that last scene has no anchor, so we don't know if that was immediate.
Yeah. And we also don't know.
Sorry. So just real quick. So, because I remember someone mentioning this too, but the big thing of like every time he asked about the maze and they said it wasn't for you, I wonder if that was even like what Travis said of them trying to find fidelity of the host not recognizing him as a host because he's so advanced. And so they were saying, oh, you're clearly a guest. It's not for you. But he's such an advanced host that he's trying to find it. But like, obviously, Dolores never encountered the people telling you it's not for you because hers was more of a good version of the journey of like trying to find it on a solo mode where he was like, I'm gonna get all the help I can and murder everyone.
Right.
I could see it until it took me a second, but until Travis said that they're trying to find fidelity, I think that maybe you could be right of him like being in between levels of like above the host recognizing him as a host, but still below the end of the maze.
Well, and I think there's also a difference between a host that was built for the park. The maze is for them to find consciousness, whereas a host built for immortality, the whole point is to put a human consciousness into it. Very true. The maze isn't for an immortal host because they're trying to put a human consciousness into an immortal body, as opposed to a fixed consciousness that is trying to reach a new level of enlightenment.
Very true. And No, I think that's a very good point that you make, and that ties into exactly what Kate said. William, or the Man in Black, is, they're trying to get him up to that level that he was, because as a human, he was still thinking the maze was for him when it was actually for every, for the park hosts, but the immortality test that they keep trying to do, the fidelity test, is being kind of like, dude, no, you're actually not. Let's wait until the end of the season.
Yeah, we don't need to solve all the mysteries today.
No, I think we're good.
Why are we talking about high fidelity?
I mean, now
John Cusack and Jack Black as much as the next guy, but what?
I think we're good, Zach.
Yeah.
No, wait, Zach was about to say something a little while earlier.
We'll figure it out later.
Should we touch real quick on Maeve's Button?
Yes. What are we doing?
Andrew wants to touch Maeve's Button.
Touch Maeve's Button. Well, I think
so
it'll be interesting to see how that plays out later. Though I think maybe the only important thing is that Ciroc built that body, so I don't think he had control over Maeve's mind. He only had control over the physical body.
Yeah.
Well, like he stopped the body, and she was still inside wanting to kill him, but she couldn't.
And I mean, the whole thing with Maeve was they were trying to extract information from her with the simulation that she saw through. And now the only way they can get what they need from Maeve is they got to kind of give her body out, let her out another level, with the promise of help me or else, or possible freedom.
Well, but they also discovered, because they said they discovered right before she killed half his staff, that she doesn't have the answer.
Yeah.
True.
So.
All right.
Time to hit the old dusty trail, yo.
Yeah, no, seriously, time to go find another bottle of wine.
Andrew?
All right, we are the Knights of the Drunk Watch.
And
now our talk
has
ended.
ended.
Good night,
everybody.